Okay, so today we're diving into a book that has, no joke, changed millions of lives. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And its big idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also completely radical. It says the real source of all our stress and our suffering, well, it isn't your job, it's not your relationships, it's not anything out there, it's that constant, chattering voice inside your own head.
So let's just start with a really simple question. Do you hear a voice in your head? I don't mean in a call the doctor kind of way, but that nonstop stream of thoughts that's just always there. Eckhart Tolle says pretty much everybody has this, and we're so used to it we don't even realize it's running the show.
He calls this voice the inner commentator, and man, it almost never shuts up, right? It's always judging things, worrying about the future, complaining about the past. It's constantly liking this, disliking that. It's just this wall of mental noise that makes it pretty much impossible to find any real peace.
But here's where Tolle flips the script. The problem isn't the mind itself. He says it's an amazing tool. The real issue is that most of us don't use our minds use us. We've gotten so tangled up with this stream of thought that the tool has, well, it's completely taken over the master.
And this is where things get really interesting. This unconscious identification with our thoughts leads to what Tolle calls the mind-made self. So, what in the world is that?
He calls this false self the ego. And this is super important. He's not talking about being arrogant or full of yourself. For Tolle, the ego is this phantom identity that's built entirely out of your thoughts. And because it's not really real, it's always insecure, it's always vulnerable, and it lives in this constant state of fear and wanting more.
And to feel real, this ego just latches onto things. It defines itself by your stuff, by what you do for a living, by what other people think of you. It even builds its identity on your beliefs and all the stories you tell yourself about your past. But as Tolle points out, none of these things, none of them, are who you actually are. Now, this exact thought is what sparked Tolle's own massive transformation. He was in this moment of just complete despair, and the thought popped into his head. But then the strangeness of it hit him. Wait a minute. If I cannot live with myself, then there must be two of me, right? There's the I, and then there's the self that I can't stand. And in that moment, he realized maybe only one of them is actually real. That one little insight just shattered his identification with that mind-made self for good.
Now, tied really closely to the ego is another one of Tolle's big ideas, the pain body. Just think of it like this. It's a collection of every single emotional pain you've ever had that you didn't fully deal with in the moment. It kind of clumps together into this negative energy field inside you. It can be dormant for a while, but then, bam, something triggers it, it wakes up, and it completely takes you over. And what does it want? It wants to feed on more drama and negativity, just to keep itself alive.
So, how do the ego and this pain body keep their grip on us? Well, they have a favorite trick. They trap us in what Tolle calls the delusion of psychological time.
And he makes these really critical distinctions here. Clock time is the practical stuff, right? We needed to set up a meeting or to know when the pizza is done. But psychological time, he says, is basically a mental illness. It's our mind's obsession with digging through the past to find out who we are and projecting into the future, hoping for some kind of salvation or happiness down the road. And this obsession with what was and what will be makes us miss the only thing that's ever actually real.
This quote from the old medieval mystic Meister Eckhart just nails it. Psychological time, this constant running away from the present moment, it's like a curtain that blocks us from experiencing our true selves, what Tolle calls our being.
So, this all leads to a really simple but kind of mind-blowing realization. Your entire life, it's not made up of the past and the future. Your whole life only ever happens in the now. The past was a now. The future will arrive as a now. It's the only place you can ever be. It's the only access point you have to who you really are.
Okay, so if the problem is being lost in our minds, and the solution is to live in the now, how in the world do we actually do that? Well, this brings us to the core practice that Tolle teaches, learning to become the watcher.
And the whole thing starts with a very simple but really powerful shift in perspective. Instead of being completely lost in your thoughts, you just start listening to them. You become this kind of impartial witness to that voice in your head.
So here's the game plan. You just listen to that voice, but you don't judge it. You don't condemn anything you hear. And when you do this, you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, here I am, the one who is watching, and over there is the thought. A space opens up, a separation happens, and that's what breaks the spell. In that little gap between thoughts, you start to experience this stillness, this deep sense of peace.
And that, right there, is the beginning of freedom.
So what do you actually find in that stillness, in those gaps between your thoughts? It's not some empty void. It's this incredible sense of aliveness that Tolle calls the joy of being. And he makes a really sharp distinction between pleasure and joy. See, pleasure comes from something outside of you, and it's always part of a cycle. The thing that gives you pleasure today might cause you pain tomorrow. But joy comes from deep within. It comes from your connection to just being. It has no opposite. It's just the deep, quiet peace that comes from being fully present.
Tolle tells this amazing little story to explain it. He says we're all like this beggar who sat on a wooden box for over 30 years, begging for scraps. He never knew that the whole time the box he was sitting on was filled with gold. We do the same thing. We're always looking outside ourselves for little bits of happiness or approval, when we are literally sitting on this immense inner treasure. And that treasure is the joy and the unshakable peace of being. And what this all leads to, really, is a way to demystify this big, scary word, enlightenment. Tolle loves the Buddha's simple definition. It's just the end of suffering. It's not some crazy superhuman achievement. It's simply getting back to your natural state of being, a state that's free from all the needless pain we create with a mind that we're not watching.
And that brings us right back here to the final, most powerful point. The entire teaching boils down to one simple truth. The past is over. The future isn't real. The only thing you will ever have is this moment, right now. Your freedom, your peace, it's always just one present moment away. So the only question left is, are you here to claim it?